If you like these stories and you want to follow the giants along on their adventures, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. All right, giants, it's time to settle down in your bed for another story. Get comfy, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and let it out. With your eyes closed, you can better picture the story I'm about to tell you. Good job. Let's begin. Flamingo Flytrap. It was beginning to warm up on the giant mountain, and that meant flies. The flies were everywhere in the summer. And it seemed like no matter what the giants did, the flies would always show up and take over. Sometimes the flies got so thick in the air that you couldn't even see past them, and it would be like a giant black cloud made of flies. The giant family had tried many things to try to rid themselves of these fly pests. They had tried fly traps, and they worked, but they did not get rid of very many. They tried the sticky tape fly traps, and those also worked, but they were not very cool hanging around the house. They even tried a Venus fly trap. They had found a bunch of Venus fly traps out in the wilderness and put them all around their house, but the fly traps were not hungry enough to get rid of very many flies. And it seemed like no matter what they did, the flies were always there and were always really bad. Luckily, they also really like to do research. So, Mom and Dad Giant got to researching about how they could fix their fly problem. And they found a very effective, very fun, and very beautiful way to solve this problem of having too many flies around. First, it involved going to Florida and finding as many flamingo lawn ornaments as they could. They also got Bo, Luna, Apple Peach Banana, and Ernie making their own flamingo lawn ornaments. Then, they all had to sit around and practice their flamingo calls. Luna's sounded like this. Bo's flamingo call sounded like this. Apple Peach Banana's flamingo calls sounded like this. Ernie's sounded like this. And their pet dragon, Char, her flamingo sounded like this. After lots of practice, they finally perfected their flamingo calls. Then, they waited until they noticed flies' eggs hatching in pools of water around them. Because before flies become flies, they're larvae. They're tiny little white wiggly creatures that live in water and dirt. And when they finally saw these little larvae hatching, that's when they went outside and set up 255 flamingo decoys on the giant mountain. Mom, I really like these flamingo decoys. Can we leave them up all year? Luna asked. Well, I don't know if we want them up all year, Mom Giant answered. But they sure do look cool. Once they were all set up, which took all afternoon because they had so many of these decoys, they sat outside and they got camouflaged so they would blend into the mountainside. They had to dress in greens and browns and then lay very still out on the ground. And that's when Dad Giant signaled to start making their flamingo calls. And then they waited. And they waited. And they waited and waited and waited. And no flamingos came. They decided to say goodnight for the day and head to bed. And when they woke up the next morning, Luna jumped out of bed. Mom, Dad, Bo, Apple, Peach, Banana, Ernie, come look, fast! All the giants got out of bed and went to look out the window. Instead of seeing a big, giant, black fly cloud, they saw a giant pink and white flamingo cloud. Let's put on our camouflage outfits, Bo suggested. So once again, they geared up in their camouflage outfits and snuck outside as quietly and sneakily as they could so they wouldn't scare the flamingos away. Then they very slowly laid down, facing up, and watched thousands and thousands of flamingos flying in and landing next to all the puddles they could find up on the mountain. That's when the flamingos started to eat. They were eating all of the fly larvas. Every single one that they could find. And there were so many flamingos, they had eaten a lot of fly larvae. I don't think we're going to have a fly problem this year, Bo said. No way, Jose, Apple, Peach, Banana answered. Then Ernie started making his flamingo call. And a very curious flamingo walked over to where they heard the call. The flamingo couldn't see the family because they were camouflaged into the mountain. And then the flamingo started walking on top of them. First, it walked across the giant's feet. And then it walked across their legs. And then their tummies. And then their faces. And sat down right on top of Ernie's face. And took a nap. The flamingo was so full from eating all of the little fly larvae that now it was tired and decided that Ernie's squishy face made the perfect sleeping spot. But after a minute, Ernie couldn't take it any longer and he shook his head. The flamingo got up really quick and flapped its wings. Looked at Ernie with those sideways glances that only flamingos know how to do. This particular flamingo thought Ernie was super cute and nice looking. He sat on Ernie's shoulder and stayed with him the rest of the day. Look, Mom! The flamingo eats right out of my hand! Ernie was showing all the giants how the flamingo would eat and drink water right out of his giant hand. It appeared that Ernie had made quite the bond with this particular flamingo. Once all the flamingo birds had their fill of the fly larvae and had quick naps, they decided since there was no more food up there to eat, they would just go ahead and move on to their next eating adventure. And they all flew off in another pink and white flamingo cloud. That's not the end of this story, though. Once the flamingos were gone, the giant kids had the task of picking up all 255 flamingo decoys again. Which wasn't so bad, except now they had no place to store so many fake flamingos.
This problem might be bigger than our fly problem, Dad Giant said. Where are we going to put this many flamingos?
Let's hide them around the country, Liz suggested. Yeah, and then everyone can have one from all the different places in the whole country, Bose added. The giant family had decided that they would take the 255 flamingos and hide them throughout the whole country. So if you're ever out driving around and you see a flamingo in somebody's yard, you know exactly how it got there. The end. Good night, Giants.